Hey guys, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Seiben here, once again bringing you the story of Magic the Gathering. Gather around for some effortless lore story time along with a free giveaway at the end. Just so you all know, winners of my giveaways are now mentioned in a pinned comment in the comment section below. I've had people literally make fake accounts of winners' names just to steal their prizes, and I think this is probably the most reasonable way to combat that. But enough jabber, let's talk the lore of Devastation. The last official story of Amonkhet, Nicole Bolas has arrived and the Hour of Devastation is about to begin. Nicole Bolas had come to Amonkhet, the world so many believed he created, in the guise of a merciful god pharaoh, only to claim what was rightfully his: everything. Through his deceit and destruction, Bolas showed all the truth of his intentions, even the gods of Amonkhet who so rightfully worshipped and led the world through his voice. Yet, even as the trials tested all of them, each failing and being found unworthy, the gods came to realize their primary purpose wasn't in serving Bolas, but the protection of the mortals, lives directly in question thanks to the god pharaoh. In death, they all eventually saw the truth. Now, only one yet lives, Hazoret, Bolas' supposed favorite, and with his mental roadblocks torn down, the god was now squarely on the side of her people. Still, things looked grim for Amonkhet. 3 of the 5 gods were all slain by just one of Bolas' corrupt lost gods, the Scorpion god, and there were still 2 others alongside this Goliath Hazoret and the mortals had to contend with, a test even she would fail to pass. Their city was lost, their world was seemingly lost. It was time to fight for each other, fight for survival. Hazoret leads a group of mortals, along with Deru and Samut, out of the crumbling city and into the harsh wastes found beyond the Hekma. If they were to survive, they would only do it together. The desert would be an entirely different test for all of them, but it was one that at least brought them hope. Still, inside their lost city, the true purpose of everything, their entire way of being, began to come to light. The angels, servants of Bolas, cried out that the Eternals were coming. They were heralded by the arrival of Bolas and his lost gods, namely the Scarab god. Out from the necropolis, the sacred house of the worthy dead who passed the trials of the 5 gods, the Scarab god led out an army of worthy, the Eternal, champions who gave everything to prove themselves only to be revived and controlled by Bolas. These weren't your normal zombies or mummy servants you'd find shambling through Amonkhet. These were skilled mages and warriors, with all their training and instincts intact even after death. They fought with the skill of seasoned champions, truly worthy of an afterlife. Yet the molten Lazotep which coated their bodies ensured that they only followed the orders of one, Nicole Bolas. This wasn't an afterlife, it was a prison. They were only worthy in the sense that a hammer is worthy to pound a nail. They were tools of Bolas, nothing more. This was the Hour of Eternity, the reason Bolas was on Amonkhet at all, the creation of his immortal army. While most sought safety in the desert, chief among them being Hapatra, who led a group of people to seek refuge, some turned on the command of Samut back into the city in order to save their remaining god Hazoret, who stayed behind in order to save as many people as possible. Samut and her dear friend had felt the loss of their gods and knew that as long as one lived, they were fated to fight to protect her, for she had protected them all their entire lives. They ventured back into the city, now overrun by the worthy dead, the Eternals of Bolas, a war that would test their skills against champions of the past, champions such as Neheb the Worthy. This Minotaur Worthy was the greatest fighter and mage of their generation, a figure of admiration and a chant for young initiates looking to pass the trials themselves. Now he stood before the pair, a sickly blue-coated zombie, with all the power and grace he had in life, and an enemy of Amonkhet. The Eternals struck quickly, pushing the pair away from each other, making them easier to pick off. The Minotaur was about to strike Deru down, but he was protected by a flash of light. Not one of their gods, but another interloper, Gideon Jorah. His force field was foreign to the Eternal, who basically stood there hacking at the shield getting nowhere. All the while, the others of the Gatewatch would join the fight, firing spells and fighting best they could against the new eternal threat. Samut used this distraction to her advantage, cutting through the Minotaur's tough Lazotep coating and severing the back of his neck, leaving the once worthy champion defeated for the final time. The Gatewatch then discussed their next move, attacking Nicole Bolas. They understood that he remade this world in his image, and that they were at a huge disadvantage. Attacking as soon as possible limited the time he had to prepare for them. It was really their only chance. Samut chimes in, offering her co-passes to the fight. Gideon hesitates before Daru steps in to be a voice of caution. He knows Samut is the better fighter, but he sees the potential in people far better than she ever could. These interlopers, these Gatewatch, could defeat Nicole Bolas. If they fought alongside them, they would only serve to get in their way. Let the champions of Amonkhet set out to do their task, saving their final god, and let the Gatewatch do theirs and defeat Bolas. Samut's head clears and she agrees. Half of the party would save a god, the other would save a world. Samut and her band of warriors come across the body of their fallen god Ronus, the first to die to the Scorpion god. She climbs the huge corpse and rallies the people to her cause. The cause of survival. The cause of their way of life. The cause of Hazoret, who is headed right in their direction. But the god of fervor isn't alone. She's being pursued by one of their greatest enemies, the god killer, the Scorpion god. But the mortals of Amonkhet wouldn't let another fall to this stinger. Hazoret gave a commanding order: run! The people were hers to protect. Still, Samut refused. She had come to protect the god, and that's exactly what she was gonna do. Hazoret, tired and injured, turned towards her enemy and vanished into a flash of fire and sand. She cast a spell of fire around the Scorpion god, trapping it within a pillar of all-engulfing fire. Hazoret leans on her spear in exhaustion, as the incredible heat pummels Samut and the others. While no one thought anything could survive this torrent of flames, Hazoret and Samut knew better and prepared for anything. The Scorpion god burst through the fire, stabbing wildly at Hazoret, who barely dodged the attacks. One strike finally found its mark, injecting her with poison through her arm. Hazoret cauterized the wound to prevent the poison from killing her outright, but at this rate, with these injuries, she would eventually fall. Though by comparison they were small and not noteworthy, Samut didn't care. She wouldn't let her god die today. Samut was the first to charge, using magic to enhance her natural abilities as a warrior, hacking and slashing at the molten hot carapace of the Scorpion god. She cuts through the shell, exposing soft flesh underneath. The beast couldn't ignore this little mortal any longer. It tried to swat her away, but Samut was tiny and quick. It looked as if the god was almost crafted to kill other gods, not deal with the mortals directly. Orders were given by Daru, as mages of their party began to pelt the Scorpion god with fire, sand, and lightning, pushing the monster towards the now barren River Luxa. The mortals fought together, but even in this weakened state, the Scorpion god cut through their numbers with ease. It crushed, squeezed, and disintegrated the mortals with its venom. Yet still the battle raged, their years of training finally being tested with a true purpose. This was their fight. The fight for Amonkhet. As such, their plan began to take form. They wouldn't throw themselves at this thing until it fell. They would push it towards a field of fallen obelisks and use them to their advantage. This thing was a tool of destruction, but the mortals had planning on their side. For their final act, they needed to push the Scorpion god just a little further. A last gust of momentum to finish it off. That's when Samut noticed a lone Kenra, a disciple of Ronus, standing tall with the fallen god's giant staff in hand. The god's latent power granted him the strength to wield such a mighty thing. With one hard swing, the Scorpion god's carapace shatters and it's pushed back into the field of toppled pointed obelisks. Yet, the fall isn't right on the money, so Samut leaped in and kicked the giant monster to fall in the right direction. The Scorpion god falls back and was impaled on the obelisks like a dagger in a deadfall trap. It was stuck there, screaming in ancient tongues in pain as it struggled to free itself. Hazoret finally limps her way back to the battle, seeing what her children had accomplished. While this thing the Scorpion God had killed her brothers and destroyed their world, she held no resentment. She knows now that it was once one of them, a god of Amonkhet, now completely corrupted by Bolas the Deceiver. There was no saving it, or the other lost gods, but at least now this one could rest easy. With that, Hazoret engulfed the Scorpion in flame until the power that beckoned it to return ceased. The pile of ash grew cold as the god addressed her children. Hazoret turns to her saviors, the saviors of Amonkhet and their way of life. Samut, the one she had declared unworthy so long ago, was now the strongest among them, the most worthy to lead them in this new age of survival. The god touched Samut's heart. Now, Samut detested, Hazoret gives her thanks and offers her heart always to the greatest champion of the greatest trial. In that moment, Samut's chest fills with pride, her eyes churn with love and acceptance, as her body slowly fades from the hot sands of Amonkhet, only to reappear on the chilled fields of a land unknown to her. To another's eyes, this world would be known as Theros. All Samut knows is that she is one of the interlopers, these people who could go between worlds. While the allure of this new land was indeed tempting, Samut knows Amonkhet and her people need her now more than ever. She doesn't understand this power, not yet, but she beckons to return, and her body obeys the command. Back on Amonkhet with her god and her people, they set forth into the unforgiving sands of the wastes, determined to forge a new life. A life they make for their own, not one crafted by some god pharaoh. This is their legacy, a legacy of endurance. As the mortals of Amonkhet fulfilled their promise of simply living on, the Gatewatch must fulfill their own, the final confrontation with Nicole Bolas. The group of Planeswalkers aren't taking on the most threatening, cunning, and powerful dragon in the multiverse just for Amonkhet, however. Throughout the countless years, Bolas has stopped at nothing in order to achieve ancient power now lost to him. He's ended countless lives, destroyed worlds. You name an evil trope and Bolas has probably done it. Not only is he a terror to the multiverse at large, but Bolas has also impacted personally the lives of many making up the Gatewatch. He released the Eldrazi Titans, which ravaged Nizzahon's home of Zendikar. He's tortured and brutalized Jace Beleren. He's manipulated and helped Liliana sell her soul to demons. He used Chandra as a pawn, resulting in her killing innocent people, and Gideon, well, Gideon just doesn't like big mean things, I guess. You get the point though, many of the Gatewatch have personal stakes in this battle, as well as the fates of Amonkhet and perhaps the multiverse as well. The massive dragon lands in what used to be a courtyard before he and his minions on this world destroyed everything that is. The 5 would-be Gatewatch gathered around and hesitated. It was clear they had a plan, but it wasn't fleshed out. Bolas pondered if they had anything more than simply kill the dragon. Not really a plan, especially to Bolas, but bless their hearts for trying. Bolas couldn't blame the group. After all, the events prior to this were all solved by a simple formula. This one zombifies it, that one elementals it, this one burns it, and that one illusions it, and the other one, he blocks it. Why wouldn't they continue this tactic, even against Bolas? The dragon, however, was unimpressed. On this day, Bolas would have one of two things, blood or better, the control of 5 new Planeswalker servants. This, however, would be merely icing on the cake. Should they die here, it would be of no consequence. There would always be others, and these Gatewatch weren't special to Bolas, not in the least. And he would show that to them. Jace was the first of the group to probe the dragon, poking his mind for any sense of a move he might make. Anything that could help the group in which he was communicating and leading through telepathic orders. Jace also wanted to better understand Bolas's grander plans. What did he hope to achieve, and how did he assume he would achieve it? Maybe in learning this, they could retreat and call off this haphazardly constructed fight, which, by the way, none of them were really prepared for. Yet, for all his mental prowess, he was still no match for Bolas. Like in fights before, Jace would find himself inept against the dragon's endless mind. Bolas goaded Jace into a mental attack, leaving himself opened, or what appeared to be open, to an assault on the dragon's mind. Jace then took the bait. The telepath dove into the wide-spanning mind of Bolas, lost in an empty dark room of obsidian, lacking all sense of structure. Something wasn't quite right. Jace, thinking himself clever, suddenly fell fully into his opponent's mind, and there he was, waiting for him. The dragon's claws dug deep into Jace's metaphorical mind, crushing his very sanity and sending his physical body roiling in pain. As blackness started to overcome him, Jace knew he was headed towards mind death, a state of nothingness, the death of a mind mage. The taunts of Bolas echoed as Jace felt himself being pulled across the multiverse, but then he felt nothing at all. The man who had once known so much and could learn anything now knew nothing at all, and instinctively planeswalked away. Liliana Vess stared at the empty space where Jace had just been screaming, but now nothing remained. Liliana feared for his life, but knew he must still be alive. He planeswalked away before dying. He had to. With that, her anger was turned fully to Nicole Bolas, who, as always, was busy taunting the group. Liliana had said she cared for Jace like anyone else would care for a pet dog, but it was more than that. And even if it wasn't, her pet was just obliterated by a dragon she already hated. It was time to show Bolas just how far she had come since he brokered her deal with demons. Two voices vied for control over her actions, the many spirits of the Chain Veil begging for release, and the cautious counsel of the Raven Man, who wanted something, but mainly to not see Liliana die. To the Raven Man, this was obviously a fight they couldn't win, and that if Liliana stayed and fought, she wouldn't survive. But before this fight went any further, Liliana and her old friend had some interesting dialogue. Liliana gave her cliched "I'm gonna kill you and make you my corpse servant" spiel, blah blah blah, but Bolas wasn't having any of it. Liliana knew this fight was over. She knew the Gatewatch were fated to lose since they were created. But she also knew power. True power. The power of gods they both once had, and could have again. Liliana begins to draw on the power of the Chain Veil, much to the spirit's delight, as Bolas begins to describe to her the artifact itself. He knows fully how it works, how to use and bend it to her will, rather than letting the spirits within look to destroy and control her soul. Bolas apparently knew it all. The spirits whispered that the dragon lied, but the Raven Man reached out and spoke rationally. You know Bolas is being truthful. He knows almost everything. He could help Liliana. It was all true, of course. Their defeat and deaths were inevitable. Bolas continued to swat the others away like flies. Bolas spoke to her again. She didn't have to die today. The safest place in the multiverse was by his side. Leave now, and he would find her to discuss how beneficial their partnership could be to one another. Stay, and she would die, with or without the Chain Veil. Liliana peeled back, with an emotion on her face her friends had never seen before. Fear. She begged the others to leave with her, escape Bolas, regroup and find Jace. It was sensible, but not what the group wanted. Their anger blinded them to their own deaths. If they wouldn't come with her, then she would leave them here. She asks Bolas where she should go, causing Chandra to burst out in angry tears and fire. Liliana had once again betrayed them, betrayed their trust. Chandra wanted to burn Liliana to ash, but she planeswalks away knowing Bolas would eventually find her. Despite her feelings, she didn't want to kill her new friends, nor did she want to die at the hands of Bolas. She had disappointed everyone yet again in her life. Chandra had gotten through her entire life solving all her problems a single way, by burning them. Bolas would be of no exception. Yet, after the defeat of Jace and the betrayal of Liliana, Chandra was guided by emotions rather than any rational plan. All she did, all she ever could do, was throw aimless fireballs at the dragon to burn him to ash. Only Bolas doesn't burn so easily. Bolas had loved the many great characteristics of Chandra once. She was powerful, yet so easily manipulated at an emotional level. But using fire against a dragon? That's just poor planning. The state Chandra was in left her no room to strategize with Nissa or Gideon, who still, somehow, thought they had a chance. Nissa summoned elementals and vines to impede the dragon, some even landing a few good blows, giving Chandra some hope as her fire bounced harmlessly off Bolas' scales. Yet, one fine whip of his tail left her in immense pain. Defeated, weak, and vulnerable, Nissa tried everything in her arsenal to save Chandra, but she was going to die. Chandra would either burn alive or be crushed by the dragon's massive claws. She could do nothing but survive. Chandra planeswalked away, unwillingly leaving her friends behind. Nissa looked over with relief as Chandra left without being crushed, yet there was still the immediate problem, the world-killing dragon. Even though the land of Amonkhet had originally resisted her call, Nissa dug deep to fight with the land itself. She had thought at one point to manipulate the gods of Amonkhet to fight Bolas for them, as she had twisted the tethers of mana which made up Kefnet. Yet, now the gods were all dead, their uses unexplored, and the land beckoned to the call of Bolas rather than her own. The dragon assaulted the elf's mind, commanding her that this land was his to control, not hers. This fight was over. Nissa couldn't overcome his psychic attack. It was obvious that she was gonna die if she stayed, so without much thought, Nissa Ravain followed the Gatewatch and planeswalking away. Now all that was left was Gideon, defeated and bruised, even through his shield. The power of the dragon caused damage. Throughout this fight, he had been flung countless times against the crumbling remains of Amonkhet, and each time he got up, another of his friends had vanished. They wouldn't win this day. Yet, hope brimmed within Gideon, a hope Bolas looked to crush. "You say I will not win? Will not win?" Bolas's laugh rumbled through the plaza. "Gideon Jorah, you are very bad at analyzing reality. I have fought against thousands of generals, thousands of tacticians and strategists and battle masterminds. You might be the worst. Let me help you. Ignoring obvious reality is a fatal flaw in our line of work. By all means, I understand the importance of aspirations, but being able to accurately assess the facts in front of you is an essential skill in the trade. You partner with an illusionist, but you are the true illusionist. You regard yourself as invulnerable, yes? A conjurer's trick, Gideon. This is how vulnerable you are." Bolas began to tear into the shield that protected Gideon's flesh, piercing through with every inchful pain, cutting through with little effort. "I could kill you, Gideon, anytime I want, but I suspect you would not mind dying, the way you play so carelessly with your life and the lives of others. No, far better for you to live today, to know how pathetic you were, how useless you were. Even better, this is how little I care. I give you the choice, stay and die or live and leave. I am content either way." Yet, as Bolas was about to end the general, Gideon planeswalked away. Ultimately, the choice was his to make, and while Bolas thought it didn't matter, Gideon would ensure it did. He would train, learn, prepare better. In the end, he and the Gatewatch would show this dragon that they do matter, that their choices matter, but on this day, they could only choose to live. This was it, the end of the first stage of his plan. His grand appearance on a stage that only saw him as a lingering, scheming shadow. Now the multiverse could see him front and center. No need to hide his intentions when the best defense against him crumbled so easily. He roared with satisfaction, the thrill of ending this world, the anticipation in using his new army of eternal soldiers, and the planar bridge Hazoret had secured on Kaladesh. Even though it had been destroyed, merely its construction was needed. Speaking of which, suspiciously after all the fighting had ended, Hazoret appeared to his master. The Gatewatch had fallen as quickly as he had suggested they would, but the time for gloating would come later. Bolas needed to get an update on another planeswalker we know, Hazoret, who is working on something for Bolas. Either by choice or force, it seems the dragon is interested in Ravnica, or at least the Is It Genius. With his centuries of planning finally coming together, Bolas took flight to witness his deeds on Amonkhet. For the first time in a long time, he seemed content. Wow guys, what an ending to the story of Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation. Bolas is as powerful as we've always known him to be. The Gatewatch are scattered to the winds, Jace is mind-wiped, apparently, and Liliana seems to have betrayed them all. Or at least they won't be happy accepting her back into the fold. We know Hazoret is on the dragon's side, but I don't know how they're going to use the planar bridge when it was destroyed. Maybe that's where Hazoret comes into play. Maybe the genius Planeswalker is rebuilding it on Ravnica. Hazoret is an interesting character because he serves a dragon already, but that's something else we can discuss in another video. Right now, all we know is, by some means, he's helping Bolas, and it looks like we have to return to Ravnica in the somewhat near future. Regardless guys, we need to end this storyline off right, with a giveaway, and I can think of no better card to give out than Nicole Bolas himself. To enter for your chance to win this card, all you have to do is be a subscriber to the channel and leave a comment on this video. I'll select one of those comments at random and pin them in a comment on my next official storyline video. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave it a like and share it with friends. It helps build the community and allows me to do more videos and giveaways like this one in the future. As always guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time here on the Aether Hub. Bolas be praised.